Now pure power unleashed. The Lightning Interceptor. Pilots of the Royal Air Force's number 92 Squadron show the might of their 20-ton fighters in the air. For sheer versatility, the Hawker Siddeley P1127 is hard to beat. Powered by a Bristol Siddeley Pegasus PS53 engine, its swiveling jet nozzles enable it to use the shortest airstrips, rise and land vertically, and hover. In forward flight, it has transonic speed. The BAC-221 has a Rolls-Royce Avon jet. Its wine-glass-shaped wings give it a new look. The HP-115 was built to study low-speed flying characteristics. Its unique handling qualities are here shown in this Dutch roll. The Jet Provost Mark IV, a twin-seater trainer combining speed with great maneuverability. Hawker Siddeley's brilliant strike aircraft, the Buccaneer, in a new improved version, the S2. Now, an exciting demonstration of the use of aircraft in a combined operation to capture an airfield. As the helicopters land troops and equipment, watch is kept overhead by Sea Vixens and Scimitars of the Fleet Air Arm. Transport and heavier weapons follow them down. Once the first assault has secured the perimeter of the airstrip, in come the main forces with their heavy equipment. They're flown in by Hawker Siddeley Argosy freighters.
The 1960s saw aviation progress from the jet age to the space age. Fantastic Farnborough Part 2 gives you a ringside seat. If you haven't got your copy yet, don't delay. Get Part 2 today.
Operation completed, and away go the Argosies.
Farnborough. Every September, thousands of buyers from all over the world flock to this natural flying amphitheatre in Hampshire to see the latest aviation hardware exhibited by hundreds of hungry manufacturers ready to do big business. It wasn't until after 1962 that Farnborough became a biannual event. This fantastic air display has always been run by the Society of British Aircraft Constructors, or SBAC, which was formed on the 28th of March, 1916. 2 years later, it organised its first aircraft exhibition at Olympia in London. In 1932, the event moved outside to New Types Park Airfield in order to show off some of the aircraft in flight. The show subsequently moved to a number of other locations, including Hendon and Radlett, both north of London. But 1948 was the turning point as the SBAC show was moved here to Farnborough. It was also the first time that the organisers allowed the public to inspect the aircraft engines and equipment, both on the ground and in the air. After all, it was the public through their taxes who had paid for what they saw anyway. Let's go back in time to one of the early Farnborough air displays when all the aircraft had to be British. Let's go back for a glimpse of aviation in 1950.
Farnborough Airfield near London, Britain displays her newest aircraft in an exhibition which grows yearly in interest, attracting an ever-increasing number of visitors from every country. "58 aircraft are on show, many for the first time. Detailed information on the performance of some of them is of course still on the secret list, but aviation experts acclaim the British machines as the finest aircraft of their types in the world. Naturally, in these uncertain times, designers have given considerable thought to the fighting services. On view was the ground attack version of the Meteor, surrounded by the remarkably large and varied range of weapons which it carries. Claimed to be capable of carrying 4 1,000-pound bombs, it's also fitted with rocket boosters. Large crowds saw a magnificent display by renowned pilots flying all types of aircraft, both civil and military, large and small. Among them, Scotland's Pioneer 2, a 4 to 5-seater light transport. Another flighty little 4-seater, the Auster Eaglet, which you can buy for just over £1,000 or $3,000. A remarkable contrast is the 130-ton Brabazon. This enormous machine, with its 8 2,500 horsepower Bristol Centaurus engines, is of course the world's largest land airline. And here's Britain's biggest air transport, the 4-engine Blackburn Universal Freighter, capable of carrying a small bus or other sizable vehicles such as heavy trucks or even bulldozers. Specially designed for anti-submarine work, the experimental short SP3. Housed in that peculiar shaped nose is the latest detection gear. Looks a bit like a flying elephant, doesn't it? Serving as a feeder liner is a beautifully shaped aircraft, the new de Havilland Heron. Two examples of the Vickers Viscount were on display. First, the experimental Tay Viscount, powered by 2 Rolls-Royce Tay turbojets. Then there was the Viscount 700. This 50-seater medium-range airliner, with a cruising speed of 312 miles an hour, is powered by 4 turbo-propeller engines. She's here seen flying with 3 of them feathered. Originally intended for service on the European route in 1952, owing to heavy holiday traffic during the summer of 1950, the prototype was brought into service on the Paris run nearly 2 years ahead of schedule. Still supreme, the world-famous long-range jet airliner de Havilland Comet has a cruising speed of 490 miles an hour. It's in production for BOAC and Canadian Pacific Airlines. There was a demonstration of refueling in the air by what is called the probe and drogue system, developed after years of intensive experiment by Sir Alan Cobham. A Lincoln bomber acts as a tanker, and a Meteor takes on the fuel at about 250 gallons a minute. An automatic cutoff prevents loss of fuel when the 2 aircraft separate. Now the process is repeated. Flight refueling may be one of the most significant modern developments in aviation, with far-reaching effects in both civil and military fields. Test pilot Peter Lawrence puts the anti-submarine plane YB-1 through its paces for part of the time with the front prop feathered. It has an Armstrong-Siddeley double-member turbo propeller. Largest single-seater striker fighter in production for the Navy is the Westland Wyvern TF-2. Armed with cannons in the wings and carrying a torpedo externally under the fuselage, the Wyvern is the latest example of the recent naval policy of employing single-seater aircraft. A high-altitude research aircraft is the Ashton, built by A.V. Rowe. It has 4 Rolls-Royce Nene turbojet engines and a speed of over 400 miles an hour. Of great interest was the Avro 707B. This delta-wing research aircraft, known to the public as the Flying Triangle on account of its shape, is one of several experimental types which may succeed in revealing fresh possibilities in high-speed flight. Coming in to land low and fast, the pilot uses a tail parachute to act as a brake. Wimpy Wade, chief test pilot of Hawkers, flies the P-1081 fighter with its Rolls-Royce Nene turbojet engine. It certainly travels like greased lightning. Vickers 535, flown by Mike Liscoe, an experimental fighter also powered by a Nene turbojet engine, may be even faster than the 1081. It was squadron leader Jan Zurakowski who gave perhaps the most spectacular performance of the show with the Meteor 8, powered by the latest Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire engines, the most powerful yet designed. He climbed to 40,000 feet in the incredible time of about 3 minutes. Finally, Wing Commander Roland Beaumont, chief test pilot of English Electric, pilots the latest version of the Canberra jet bomber, which is now going into production for the RAF. The first high-altitude light jet bomber, it's powered by 2 Avon gas turbines and has a remarkable turn of speed and maneuverability. So this year's Farnborough display demonstrates once again that Britain excels in the field of aviation.
A year later, in 1951, 49 aircraft took part in the show. 19 of them were making their first appearance in public. For instance, the new Hermes 5, a turboprop aircraft with a cruising speed of 355 miles an hour.
Another strange-looking aircraft, the Nomad Lincoln, is testing out a new type of composite engine fitted in the nose. This is a combination of gas turbine and piston types. Incidentally, the Nomad is the first composite to fly. Here's the SA-4, the first new bomber out of Short Brothers since the wartime Sterling. It has 4 Rolls-Royce Avon turbojets in double mountings, a business-like aircraft with speed, load, and armament still very much on the secret list. The de Havilland Venom is a machine with many uses: fighter bomber, night fighter, carrier-borne fighter under the name of Sea Venom, and now fitted with an afterburner which will increase its already startling rate of climb. An old friend in a new role, the Gloucester Meteor, in the guise of a ground attacker and apparently with plenty of rockets for the job. She was flown at Farnborough by Squadron Leader Zurakowski, a Battle of Britain pilot, the first man to do a double cartwheel in a jet aircraft. The P-1067 is the latest production fighter for the RAF. Performance, the topmost of top secrets, a terrific successor to Sidney Cam's Hurricane. Great interest centres, of course, on the Delta Wing experimental types, of which several were on show, including the Bolton Paul 111, a threatening-looking machine and a foretaste of future aircraft design. The Avro 707B differs from the 707A by having a dorsal intake for its Derwent turbojet. It's intended for relatively low-speed research work, while the 707A with its wing root intakes is altogether a faster machine. Parachutes are used to reduce landing distance on these Delta Wing aircraft. Here the 707B comes down with a fine flurry of flying silk. A butterfly tail without fin or rudder is a characteristic of the Supermarine 508, claimed to be the fastest and most powerful naval fighter in the world. She is with the Swift prototype in the background. Now for the Vickers Valiant, Britain's latest and fastest bomber. Without any doubt, it's the highlight of this year's show. A most impressive example of speed and power, a worthy product of Britain's aircraft factories. From the earliest days of aviation right up to the Hurricanes and Spitfires of the last war, our design and construction have been unequaled anywhere. These new civil and military types uphold that tradition of British leadership in the field of aeronautical achievement. Farnborough, 1952. Farnborough has become a famous name in any language, and the Farnborough Show is now firmly established as one of the most important events of the year in Britain. The Bristol Britannia is the ideal airliner. She has a large carrying capacity, anything from 60 to 100 passengers. BOAC, who have ordered 26, believe that the design of the Britannia will prove to be the most economical and efficient ever conceived. A lovely, graceful machine, her evolution ranks as a milestone equal to the regular services of the Comet. In that evolution, as in the development of all successful aircraft, the test pilot plays an enormously important part. Farnborough this year poignantly emphasized the hazardous nature of the test pilot's contribution. Here are a few who put on the marvelous show which this film is trying to picture for you. Peg, Britannia. Trubshaw, the Viscount. Bryce, Vickers Valiant. Tyson, Princess Flying Boat. Beaumont, Canberra Trainer. Lithgow, Vickers 508. Cahoon, the Supermarine Swift. Falk, the Vulcan. Waterton, the Gloucester Javelin. The late John Derry of the de Havilland 110 with his observer Tony Richards, the two men who were killed in the distressing crash. And Neville Duke, the Hawker Hunter. The launching and successful first flight of the long-range Saunders Roe Princess Flying Boat had been one of the big aviation events of the summer. Now the huge vessel wings proudly over Farnborough on her 10 engines. 4 of the turboprop engines you can see are coupled units. Her accommodation for 102 passengers could be converted to carry 250 troops if need be. And that brings us by a natural transition to military types. Starting again with trainers, highly important in the education of air crews in this jet age, the Canberra trainer is now seen to advantage in a spectacular sequence which shows off her amazing maneuverability. The latest type flew across the Atlantic and back to Britain in an all-in time of 10 hours for the double journey. The faith of the English Electric Company in their first pioneering effort in jet aircraft has been abundantly justified. A new phrase, super priority, has been invented for Britain's rearmament drive, and in super priority production for the RAF is the Supermarine Swift. A single-engined fighter, although her 2 intakes, like elephant's ears on either side of the fuselage, may give the impression of 2 engines, she is certainly of distinctive design. She has a London to Brussels record to her credit, averaging 665 miles per hour for the 200 miles. That is completing the journey in just over 18 minutes. The most revolutionary fighter in super priority production for the RAF is the twin-engined, delta-winged Gloucester Javelin. She's a 2-seater, long-range, day and night fighter, radar-equipped, capable of flying faster than sound. Is the Delta the design of the future? Many authorities seem to think so. Experiments are being conducted by a number of aircraft constructors since the war, but the Javelin is the first Delta fighter to be put into actual production. You'll notice as she banks and climbs that she leaves a trail behind each wingtip. This peculiar effect is created by atmospheric conditions, not exhaust fumes. Arriving with the 2 Delta-shaped research aircraft from which he was developed, the Avro Vulcan bomber was top secret at Farnborough. She wasn't exhibited on the ground, and the only views which observers had of her were these. Like the Javelin, she may represent the shape of things to come. Experts say the Delta design is certain to give great speeds over longer ranges at higher ceilings with maximum economy of operation. Here is the de Havilland 110. John Derry regularly on successive days put this twin-engined multi-purpose fighter into a supersonic dive.
Temperatures in, starting to accelerate now, coming up to the speed of sound now, passing it now.
On one occasion, the Minister of Defence, Lord Alexander, was there to see him do it. The tragedy, which occurred on the last day but one of the show, was not caused by the effect of piercing the sound barrier. Derry had flown to Hatfield and brought back another 110, not the aircraft shown in the earlier shots of this sequence. It was in the second machine that he dived through the barrier.
Down to the dial.
Then he straightened out and circled the aerodrome. The catastrophe occurred when he was preparing to come in for his low-level fly past. Suddenly, the aircraft was disintegrating in the air, with engines and debris being hurled towards a section of the crowd. In spite of the tragedy to the 110, the test pilot of the Hawker Hunter, Neville Duke, forthwith took off his single-seater swept-wing fighter into the air for another supersonic demonstration. It was in a way a tribute to John Derry that his fellow test pilot paid in carrying on immediately with the activities which they had both pioneered. So the Hawker Hunter, which is also in super priority production for the Royal Air Force, shows off her dazzling qualities before the Farnborough crowd. Again, the sound barrier is cracked. The Hawker Hunter, faster than the American Sabre or the Russian MiG-15, is the lineal descendant of the famous Hurricane. So once more, the Farnborough flying display of the Society of British Aircraft Constructors proved to be an epoch-making event. There had been tragedy, which had served as a reminder of the courage of pioneers, but the overriding impression was of new advances in the story of man's mastery of the air. Farnborough, 1954. Now watch the maneuverability of the Provost armed trainer. This is the Hunting Percival Jet Provost, the world's first basic jet trainer, designed expressly for the instruction of pilots from the very beginning of their flying careers. The short Sherpa, an experimental plane, will help the development of future operational aircraft. Now the Fairey Delta. This, the smallest British Delta form of piloted aircraft, is an experimental research machine. As you see, a parachute brake is used for landing. The Folland Midge, powered by an Armstrong-Siddeley Viper jet, can fly at 600. Production cost is about a third of a standard jet fighter. The Gnat, which is to follow this prototype, will have a Bristol Orpheus engine, and it'll be supersonic. Canberra's next. First, the Olympus. This experimental aircraft set a world altitude record of 63,688 feet in 1953. The Sapphire Canberra is being built under license in America as the B-57 A and B. The Canberra PR-7 is a more powerful version of the well-known high-altitude photo reconnaissance aircraft. And the Canberra 8. This long-range night intruder can readily be adapted to the role of high-altitude bomber. The Soar Meteor has wingtip engines that develop a thrust of 7 times their own weight. It can maintain height on the Soar engines alone after switching off the Rolls-Royce Derwent jets. The Vickers 525 is probably the fastest and most powerful aircraft yet built for operating from a carrier. It's powered by 2 Rolls-Royce Avon jets. The 525 is seen here with its stable companion, so to speak, the Swift. Gloucester Javelins, powered by 2 Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire engines, are the world's first twin-jet Deltas. They're supersonic, long-range, day and night fighters. Now the Comet 3. Maximum cruising speed over 500, range about 4,000 miles. Comet 3 and Comet 2 flew together at the Farnborough show. Their appearance was certainly welcome after recent disappointments and a pointer to jet airliner progress. Group Captain John Cunningham, formerly a night fighter ace and now de Havilland's chief test pilot, has set records in comets. He and all the pilots flying at the display, as well as all personnel concerned with the aircraft on show, make a great personal contribution to British aviation. It's right indeed to remember the men who fly or service these splendid machines, as well as all those who design and produce them. Last but very far from least, the Bristol Britannia. This 100-passenger airliner with its 4 Proteus turboprop engines, it flies very nicely on 3, can carry a 25,000-pound payload at a cruising speed of 360 over a still air distance of 3,650 miles. One of the many highlights of a splendid Farnborough display, it's fitting that the last word should be Britannia.
The Society of British Aircraft Constructors' 17th flying display and exhibition at Farnborough drew a record number of overseas visitors. And in spite of the bad weather, very large crowds attended on public days. In this famous shop window, the finest and latest products of British design and British technical skill are displayed for all to see. The emphasis, both in military and civil aircraft and engines, was on products which, since their first presentation, have steadily improved and are already giving good service. In addition, of course, there was plenty of evidence that British constructors are always looking ahead, probing the future of flight. The Fairey Delta II, in which the world airspeed record was set, naturally attracted enormous interest. The Avro Vulcan, one of Britain's V bombers, is dominating and impressive. Among the visitors was a party of Russians led by Mr. Dementiev, Soviet Minister for the aircraft industry. The static exhibition was the most important feature of the show, but the big thrills are in the air. A Lincoln flying test bed takes off to demonstrate the Rolls-Royce Tyne engine, a high-efficiency turboprop which will power the Vickers Vanguard fleet ordered by BEA. The Lincoln flew past with the Tyne alone in action and all 4 Merlins feathered. Attention now for the military section. The Handley Page Victor is a crescent-winged bomber in production for the RAF. The Victor B-1 is powered by 4 Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire jets and has immense striking power. It has already flown within a fraction of the speed of sound. The Vickers Valiant, shown at Farnborough, was fitted with two de Havilland Super Sprite liquid-fuel rocket engines. It gave a demonstration of the short takeoff and steep climb made possible by this extra thrust of over 8,000 pounds. Valiants were the first of Britain's four-jet V-bombers to enter service for the RAF. The third type of V-bomber, the Avro Vulcan, is the world's first and biggest delta-wing four-jet bomber. It's in production for RAF Bomber Command and is beginning to enter squadron service. The aircraft nudges the sonic barrier at around 50,000 feet. A Vulcan flying to Australia after the Farnborough show was over set up several new records. A parachute brake comes into operation to shorten the landing run. English Electric Canberras can do a lot of jobs extremely well. Here's the B-8 with offset fighter-type canopy. Its various roles include night intrusion, high-altitude bombing, and target marking. Next, a Canberra B-2 takes off with extra boost from a Napier Scorpion rocket engine. Apart from takeoff boost, this liquid propellant engine also produces a very useful push of great importance at high altitudes. Gloucester Javelins were RAF Fighter Command's first Delta wing aircraft, specifically designed to seek out and destroy enemy bombers by night or day, in fair weather or foul. The Javelin, which can carry air-to-air guided missiles, showed off its handiness in the air. Chief Marshal of Aviation, Jigarev, and other Russian officers watched with keen interest as all these aircraft showed their paces. Vickers Supermarine Swifts were there. The latest version is intended for specialized roles, including service trials of the Fairey Fireflash guided missile. Their performance at low level and their rate of climb are exceptional. The Vickers N113 is a single-seat carrier-borne naval fighter bomber. On order for the British Fleet Air Arm, this aircraft can carry an atom bomb. The Folland Gnat is a single-seat, lightweight fighter. It makes two notable claims: that its weight is only about 1/3 of that of a conventional fighter, and that it requires only 1/5 of the usual man-hours to produce it. It doesn't waste time in the air either. But talking of speed, here's Peter Twiss, holder of the world speed record which he set up early in 1956. The Fairey Delta II, a supersonic research aircraft, is the machine in which he did it. The FD-2, powered by one Rolls-Royce Avon jet with reheat, was the first aircraft in the world to exceed a speed of 1,000 miles an hour under international record conditions. The record of 1,132 miles an hour put Britain right on top in the realm of speed in the air, and gave a lead which will certainly show results in the design and construction of aircraft of the future. This amazing aircraft can lower its nose to give better landing visibility and uses tail brake parachutes to shorten the run in. From the fabulous to the fighters, the famous and versatile Hunters. They can carry rockets, 24 of them. They can streak into the attack with two air-to-air guided missiles, the Fairey Fireflash. And there's the Hunter T7 trainer, a two-seater being developed by hawkers for use in even wider roles than those in which Hunters are already employed. Hunters form the backbone of RAF Fighter Command and are in service with NATO and a number of foreign air forces. Of course, as speed increases, so does the need for slowing down a landing run. A Hunter demonstrated one method, reverse thrust, a method likely to prove invaluable with civil aircraft too. The smoke was specially laid on to show the reverse thrust. One of the most thrilling features of the display at Farnborough was provided by a formation team of Royal Air Force Hunters. America's General Sheila, like everyone else in the big crowd of spectators, must have fully appreciated the aerial ballet put on by the pilots of number 43 Squadron. This very skillful display was given daily, fascinating to watch. Here was further proof not only of the RAF's mastery of formation flying, but also of the excellence of the Hunter. A magnificent performance, ending with that spectacular evolution known as a bomb burst. Naval affairs also come into the picture. The Armstrong-Whitworth Sea Hawk is a single-seat carrier-borne fighter-bomber powered by a Rolls-Royce Nene jet. It carries underwing bombs and rockets, and as well as being in service with the Fleet Air Arm, it's on order for NATO forces. The Fairey Gannet, powered by an Armstrong-Siddeley double-member turboprop engine, is a three-seater anti-submarine aircraft. The stores it can carry include torpedoes, mines, depth charges, and air-sea rescue apparatus. And that's far from a complete catalogue. Now a Farnborough Flutter, a hop of helicopters. The Bristol Type 173 is a development aircraft undergoing intensive trials by BEA. A military variant has been ordered for the RAF. The Saunders Row Skeeter, a light two-seater, has been ordered for service with the Army. It's too big to land on a sixpence, but it can easily touch down on a lorry. The Westland Widgeon can be used as a five-seater, or it can perform as a flying ambulance to accommodate two stretcher cases and an attendant. The Westland Whirlwind, carrying 8 passengers and a crew of 2, is used by all 3 of Britain's armed services. The Fairey Ultra Light can rise like a lark. It uses compressed air in pressure jet units at the tips of its two-bladed rotor, designed for military and civil markets. Going down. From the midget to the giant, the Blackburn Beverley, a transport to carry 22 tons of payload. It gave a demonstration of disembarking a load of 100 troops in the quick time of about a minute and a quarter. The Hunting Percival President made its debut at this display. This machine has several forms: a 6-seat executive aircraft, an ambulance plane, or a freighter.
The 1957 Farnborough Air Show will be remembered by the appearance in force of defensive guided missiles. But it is still the manned aircraft, particularly the latest high-speed ones, which can claim the main attention. Steaming onto the rain-soaked runway comes a veritable cavalcade of famous British aircraft, the Vickers-Armstrong Scimitar, the Navy's first atom bomb carrier. The famous Canberra, now used for so many things. The Accountant, a new turboprop airliner. The English Electric P-1, a supersonic fighter. The de Havilland Comet 3, prototype for the much improved Comet 4. The Avro Vulcan delta-winged V-bomber. The English Electric P-1. The Fairey Delta 2, a world speed record holder at 1,132 miles an hour. The Flame Red Seahawks of number 738 Squadron Royal Navy. They perform their remarkable formation, takeoff and aerial drill. The Scottish Aviation Twin Pioneer with two Elvis Leonides engines demonstrates its quick takeoff. And the Miles HDM Caravan with its paper knife wing, powered by two Blackburn Cirrus major engines. The English Electric Supersonic P-1 fighter with high sweepback and capable of speeds of over 1,000 miles an hour. Now the new Saunders Roe SR-53 with Armstrong Siddeley Viper and de Havilland Spectre rocket mixed power unit. Taking off with the rocket going now. The Hawker Hunter Circus, each aircraft with a differing armament load. The difficulties of flying in marginal weather are shown by this roll, which gave the pilot a nasty moment. Mass demonstration of Hawker Hunters by 111 Squadron. 9 aircraft. followed by 5 of the Hunters giving one of the most polished aerobatic displays ever seen. This included 2 new maneuvers, the Card 5, which you see here, and the W Whiskey. As 111 Squadron break away in their bomb burst, a lone Hunter rolls across the sky and Farnborough is over for another year, and the world has again witnessed triumphs of British engineering. The 1958 exhibition and display of the Society of British Aircraft Constructors, or simply Farnborough. Missiles, radar, aircraft, the whole parade of the power and the utility of aviation. The dawn of the space age and of the jet era. The real emergence of the helicopters. All these things reflected in the pageant of the Farnborough skies. First, the current armament of the Royal Air Force, the Javelin all-weather fighters, and a cloud of Hunters. Representatives of the squadrons of Great V bombers, a Victor, a Vulcan, and a Valiant. Valiants doing air-to-air refueling. And those maids of much work, the cameras. A rocket-equipped Scorpion camera. Camera with flame and with power and climb. The Comet 4, now gloriously in service again and first in the Atlantic race. A Victor bomber showing the new low-level labs or lob bombing technique. Throw the bomb off and then loop and half roll to clear the scene. The half roll and away, and the wonder being not that it is well done, but that it can be done at all with such a huge aircraft. After the Victor, a typical Farnborough contrast, the Auster small canvas aerobatics, always so beautifully done. Utility again in crop spread. Sheer spectacle, the Navy's aerobatic team of Seahawks. Coloured smoke, beautiful figures traced in the sky. Lovely flying followed by a formation landing. Then perhaps the dominating aeroplanes of the 1958 Farnborough, the Copters. The Bristol 192, shown here landing, and as it lands, one engine is blanked off. And with one engine blanked off, flying on one, gives a demonstration of single-engined reliability. Two little skeeters and the new P531 add their emphasis to the helicopter importance of 1958. The westward circus, the Wessex, doing small space aerobats that the Auster might aim. The Widgeon, jaunty and gay, obviously enjoying itself. The Whirlwind, the Navy's familiar chopper, a family of steady development. Development which has led to the prototype twin-engined Westminster, at the moment looking like a cutaway drawing of itself, but which can be a 40-seater airliner, a flying crane. Indeed, its uses and potentialities are almost endless. After the impudence, the majesty of perhaps the key aircraft of the show, the Rotterdam. This new idea in direct takeoff flight is a helicopter near the ground and a fast auto-gyro with ordinary air screws when in cruising configuration. The power goes on to the rotor tips, and the big airliner becomes again a hover plane. A fascinating development for short-length air journeys of the future. The new Vulcan, the world's biggest Delta. At Farnborough, this aircraft too gets into the aerobatic act. The Labs bombing technique is demonstrated over again. The huge Delta loops, and then half rolls, elephantine but efficient. Glimpse of secrets, the new standoff bomb carried under a Vulcan. For a few minutes, the sky seemed full of hunters, and then suddenly it was. 22 of them from 111 Squadron doing that fabulous formation loop. Peel away, leaving 16 to do a row. Five aircraft of the aerobatic team, cutting the sky with lovely curves. A new art form, no longer just a stunt. Once again, Farnborough underlines the importance of aviation of all kinds and of Britain's place in this great industry.
This is Farnborough, 1959, the 20th flying display and exhibition organized by the Society of British Aircraft Constructors. Farnborough in southern England, the largest and most famous air show in the world. It reflects the growth of a whole industry, and its success is the success of British aircraft. One of the fascinations of this industry is its variety. One newcomer isn't really a plane at all, but as a revolution in transport, the hovercraft is attracting great interest at home and abroad. Over 350,000 visitors saw this year's display, and they had perfect weather for it too. First in the program is the Comet, and de Havilland's chief test pilot, John Cunningham, goes aboard to show off the 4B version to the waiting crowds. Powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Avon jets, its takeoff run is exceptionally short. Let's go upstairs and get alongside the Comet in the air. This is one advantage of seeing Farnborough on film. Wearing the colourful new livery of British European Airways, it will start operating early in 1960. The standard Comet 4 is already in service with BOAC and other airlines. The use of reverse thrust enables it to operate from quite small airfields. We spotted the Crown Prince of Nepal among spectators watching another jet, the pocket-sized Folland Gnat, a 2-seat training version of this lightweight fighter. Incidentally, this prototype had only flown for 10 hours before its Farnborough appearance. It's a development of the single-seat fighter beyond. Another jet trainer is the 2-seater version of the English Electric Lightning. This machine first flew in the spring of 1959. And it has the same performance as the fighter version. In other words, it's fully supersonic. The single-seat fighter furthest from the camera has been ordered in quantity for the Royal Air Force. Blackburn Aircraft's contribution in the transonic field is the NA-39. A 2-seater strike aircraft for the Navy, designed to give the high speed and accurate control needed for low-level attack. In its class, it's been described as ahead of any other aircraft in the world. Always a Farnborough highlight, formation aerobatics by the services. A twinkle roll. A new maneuver by scimitar jets introduces the pilots of the Royal Navy, the men of 807 Squadron. Let's follow the fighter bombers in a formation roll, flying as if linked by invisible threads, while Earth and sky revolve around. Now have another look at the hovercraft. Floating on a cushion of air supplied from an Alvis Leonides piston engine, it glides over land or water without touching the surface. Its potential as a cross-channel or river ferry has brought many inquiries from overseas, and its designers are hoping to follow this prototype with a version weighing 40 tons. As for the brand new airliners at Farnborough, the largest is the Vickers Vanguard. This machine has made a tremendous impact both at home and abroad. The reasons aren't hard to find. Vickers claim that its economy with Rolls-Royce Tyne engines could cut many passenger fares by 50%. Its design is the result of their experience with over 400 Viscounts. The whole thing was neatly summed up by the president of Trans-Canada Airlines, who have ordered 20. As good as the Viscount, but twice as big. Another of 1959's newcomers is the Argosy Freighter Coach, a new design from Armstrong Whitworth for the rapidly expanding air freight market. Led by the Westminster Flying Crane, here's Westland's helicopter cavalcade. Research into vertical flight has produced some great advances. The short SC-1 is a delta wing research machine powered by 5 Rolls-Royce jets. It uses the thrust of 4 of them to give vertical lift. The other one drives it along. The lifting jets can also be inclined to give a forward thrust or directed forwards to act as a brake. It's the first machine of its type in the world. Now back to the runway where Hawker hunters are lining up for one of Farnborough's aerobatic displays. These are the men and machines of Treble 1 Squadron Royal Air Force, known collectively and expressively as the Black Arrows. The traditions of the Death or Glory boys, the trailblazers of World War II, have been handed on to the pilots of the jet age. Their skill and daring are now combined in a display to thrill the Farnborough crowds. The hunters dive in a spectacular bomb burst over the field. And we reach the finale of this Farnborough flypast. Another chapter of aviation progress written in the sky.